Hello, welcome back to Legal Brain. Today, I'm going to discuss yet another important topic in exam point of view, and that is fraud and misrepresentation. I was discussing about the different factors vitiating free consent, and I have already discussed about coercion and undue influence in the last class. And today, I'm going to discuss about fraud and misrepresentation and different, factors vitiating free consent. I have already given an introduction about consent. So by virtue of Section 13 of Indian Contract Act, consent can be said to be there when, two or more parties agree upon the same thing in the same sense, and that is called identity of mind, and the meaning is consensus ad idem, which means, both the parties should be thinking about the same thing in the same sense, and then we can conclude that there is meeting of minds. And I have also discussed about free consent and stated that whenever a party gives the consent should be free in nature. And how to say that the consent is free? The answer is whenever there is no coercion, undue influence, fraud, or misrepresentation, we can say that the consent is free. And I have already discussed about coercion and undue influence in the previous class. And now I'm going to discuss about fraud and misrepresentation. I have also discussed about, the effect of the contract. As you all know, the effect of the contract will be, it will be a voidable contract. That means, which can be avoided at the option of the party. And now I'm going to discuss about fraud and misrepresentation. So first, I'm going to discuss about the definition of fraud under law. By virtue of Section 17 of Indian Contract Act 1872 that gave the definition of fraud, look at the screen and try to understand. Fraud means and includes any of the following acts committed by a party to a contract or by anyone with his connivance or by his agent with intent to deceive another party thereto or his agent or to induce him to enter into a contract. So the meaning is that whenever a party induces the other party to enter into a contract by doing certain things, we can say that there is fraud. So I am going to cut short it into points and going to discuss it in detail so that it will be easy for you to understand. So the first point is that a suggestion as to factor of that which is not true by one who does not believe it to be true. So the first point is that one person wanted to do fraud to the other person and induce him to make him to enter into a contract. The first point is that if he should be making a suggestion to the fact or the fact of that which is not true, that means a person is making a suggestion and that should not be true in nature. And the second point is that an active concealment which means hiding, an active concealment of a fact by one having knowledge or belief of the fact. That means, for example, myself, according to the first point, I'm giving a suggestion. I'm telling yeah, this will be good. Even though I know that which is not good. I know specifically, for example, I know that, a particular bike is not good. But I'm telling you, this bike is really good. You purchase it from me. I am making a suggestion to, to induce you, to make you to enter into a contract, try to change your mind with an intention to cheat you. That is the first point. Second is an active concealment of the fact. Concealment means hiding. So I'm actively hiding the truth. And I know that that is not the truth. And the third point is any other act fitted to deceive. Deceive meaning is cheating. So I'm doing any act, whatever be the thing that I'm doing, I'm speaking, in my mind, I'm planning to cheat you. And if I'm doing something like that, that will fall under the definition of fraud. And also a promise made without any intention of performing it. For example, I am like promising you, I will deliver this particular product tomorrow. But I'm giving the promise, but I doesn't have any intention to perform it. I am planning to cheat you, but I am giving you a promise. I will deliver it tomorrow, but I won't deliver it. I know that I have plans to cheat on you. So if these things are there, that means it's mainly falling under the category of fraud by virtue of Section 17. So the first point is making a suggestion and which is not true in nature. Second one is actively concealing, active concealment, hiding of a fact by one having knowledge or belief of the fact. And the next point is, any other act in which, I'm planning to deceive, to cheat. And the person making a promise even though, the person, doesn't have any plans to perform it. So all these points will fall under the concept of fraud. If any of the person is doing all these things, it will fall under the concept of fraud. For example, I'm planning to sell a bike, and I know that the bike is not in a good condition. But I'm making a suggestion. Yeah, the bike is really good. In my mind, I have plans to cheat on you, and I'm making a suggestion so that you will plan to buy it. Next, I'm hiding that this bike won't give this much mileage, but I am, hiding the fact, and I'm telling that this bike will give this much mileage. I'm hiding a fact, and I'm making you to change your decision, and I'm making you to enter into the contract. Or I'm doing any act to cheat on you, or I'm giving a promise that I will deliver this good on this particular date, but I have no plans to deliver it. All these will fall under the concept of fraud by virtue of section 70. So we discussed about the essentials of fraud. Now look into the screen and try to understand. By virtue of section 17, misrepresentation of facts may be intentional or innocent. One person is misrepresenting the fact, and it can be intentional or it can be innocent in nature. And intentional misrepresentation has been termed as fraud. That means I have intention, mental intention to cheat on you, and I'm misrepresenting a fact that will fall under fraud. But if I'm making an innocent misrepresentation, that meaning is I have no plans to cheat on you. I have no plans to cheat. I have no plans to do fraud, but I'm making a misrepresentation, but I, in my mind, doesn't have any plan to cheat on you. So that will fall under the concept of misrepresentation. So misrepresentation can be treated into two categories. One is the person is having an intention to cheat or to do fraud, intentionally doing something, giving a suggestion, that will fall under the concept of fraud. But if the person doesn't have any intention to cheat, it is an innocent misrepresentation, that will fall under the concept of misrepresentation. So now I'm going to discuss in detail about the particular concept. Now I'm going to discuss about the different essentials of fraud with case laws. The first point is that there must be representation and it must be false. As I've already told you, there should be a representation, a statement, a representation, and it should be false in nature. It should be wrong in nature. And case law is Peak versus Goodney, 1873. I'll be discussing the case law soon. And the next point is the representation must relate to a material fact. That means the particular representation the person giving should be related to the material fact, or to related to the subject matter. That is the second point. And case law is Bissett versus Wilkinson, a 1972 case. I'll discuss the case law. The third point is the representation must have been made before the conclusion of the contract with the intention of including the party to act upon it. The meaning is that the person should be making this particular representation or statement, or something related to the fact, with an intention to make the other person to enter into the contract. That should be the motive of this misrepresentation. And the fourth point is the other party must have been induced to act upon the representation. That means the party should have been induced, should have changed the mind, and should have been ready to enter into the contract. And the other party must have relied upon the representation and must have been deceived. The party completely believed the other party and have performed the contract or enter into the contract with a faith, then it can be treated as fraud. And the case law is Hospital versus Thomas, 1862 case, landmark case. All these three cases are landmark case laws. So I'll be discussing about the facts of the case. So before that, the essentials of fraud include there should be a representation and it must be false in nature. The representation must relate to a material fact. The representation must have been made before the conclusion of the contract with an intention of including the party to act upon it, and the party should have been induced, but because of that, then the other party must have been relied upon the representation and must be deceived in nature. Now, I'm going to discuss about the case laws, the relevant case laws. The first is Peak versus Goodney, 1873 case laws. In exam point of view, this case is really important. Once when you get a question about, what is fraud, then you have to write this particular case law. So this case law is based on the footing, there must be false representation. And we're going to see what do you mean by that. And first, I'm going to discuss about the facts of the case. The facts of the case is that the prospectus of the company did not refer to the existence of, certain liabilities. A particular company was having certain liabilities, but the prospectus of the company does not reveal that. So it is like, in prospectus, we have to reveal the truth, because according to the prospectus, by reading the prospectus, by people will, try to buy shares from the company, and so on. So in this case, what happened is that the particular company does not, reveal or does not disclose the liabilities that the company was having. And this gave the impression that the company is filthy rich and everything is right and prosperous in the company. But in reality, it is not like that. So if the existence of the document has been disclosed, if it was disclosed, then the impression would have been different in nature. So by seeing the prospectus, thinking the company is, really going good and doing good and it's prosperous, certain people, the plaintiff, have purchased a share from this particular company and held that, after purchasing the share, he get to know that, this company is not doing good and it's under loss. He filed a case. And court held that non-disclosure amounted to fraud, and anyone who purchased the shares on faith of this prospectus could avoid the contracts. As I've already told you, the effect of the contract will be avoidable in nature. The party can actually avoid the contract. And in this case, the thing is that in the prospectus, the company doesn't reveal the fact that the company was having liabilities. They hide the fact and, they made a statement. And a party believed that purchased shares and get to know the reality, filed a case, court held that there was fraud. And the point is there must be false representation. And this is a very important landmark case law falling under the concept of fraud. And the second important point is the representation must relate a material fact. There should be a connection with the material facts. And the case law is Bissett versus Wilkinson, 1972 case law. And the facts of the case is that the vendor of the piece of the land told a prospective purchaser, a person who is going to purchase particular land, the prospective purchaser, that in his opinion, the land could carry 2,000 sheep. So that was an opinion given by the vendor to the prospective purchaser who is planning to purchase this particular, land. In fact, the land could carry only a number less than that. The vendor made a statement, an opinion that this particular land could include like 2,000 sheep, but in reality, it was not like that. And he, the purchaser, he bought the thing and get to know that there is, less than 2,000 sheep, and he filed a case. And the court held that there was no misrepresentation, as the statement was one of the opinion which was honestly held. That means the particular person doesn't have any intention to fraud the other party, the buyer. He just made an opinion, and that does not relate to the material fact. So always, if a person is trying to do fraud, if a person is trying to make a representation, it must always relate it to the material fact and not a passive, opinion. And next is a very important point, that is mere silence without any legal duty to speak will not amount to fraud. The concept is silence, silence is fraud or not. So the answer is, if, the person doesn't have any, legal duty to speak, and he is keeping silent, the silence will not amount to fraud. But in case, if a person is having a legal duty to speak, he is not speaking, that will amount to fraud. So you look into the screen and try to understand mere silence without any legal duty. As I've told you, a person keeping silence without, he doesn't have any legal duty to speak, will not amount to fraud, except where there are exceptions. First point is, the circumstances of the case are such that regard being had to them, it is the duty of the person keeping silence to speak. Like, if the person is having a duty to speak and he is keeping silent, that will amount to fraud. Second, silence in itself will be equivalent to speech. Silence can be, said it's equivalent, it's equal to speech when the person is having a legal duty to speak. Next is change of circumstances and duty to speak where contracting practice response trust and confidence. I'll give you a simple example. For example, you are going to buy certain things from me. And I am having the duty to say that whether, for example, you're going to purchase a machine from me. So I have a legal duty to say that the machine is working properly, everything is fine or not. But I am keeping silence. I'm not telling that. I have a legal duty, but I'm not, telling that. That will amount to fraud. That silence will amount to fraud. But if I doesn't have a legal duty to speak and I'm not speaking about it, that won't be fraud. So these are important areas. So the essentials of fraud includes the act must have been committed by a party to the contract, or with his connivance or by an agent, and should have been committed by a stranger. So there should be, the person should have done this with the motive to fraud or to cheat or to deceive the party. You should be making a representation which is not innocent and which is fraudulent in nature. And the plaintiff must have suffered a loss. And next is effect of fraud. By virtue of section 19 stated that we are having two remedies. For example, I have done a fraud to you. And what is the remedy available for you? The first one is he or she may avoid the contract. You can avoid the contract at the option of the party. That no, I have already mentioned it is a voidable contract, and may ask for the damages. Damages meaning is compensation. You can ask for the compensation from me for the losses you have suffered because of the non-fulfillment of the contract. Second one is you can also insist for, specific performance of the contract. So these are the two remedies available for you. You can avoid the contract because it is voidable contract. You can ask for damages. That means you can seek compensation from me. And you can also insist for the performance of the contract. And next concept is misrepresentation. And I'm going to discuss about what do you mean by misrepresentation. It is false representation made innocently without any intention of deceiving the other party. The meaning is that if I am making a representation and I don't have any intention to cheat on you or to do fraud against you, I'm making an innocent misrepresentation. That is called misrepresentation, and that won't be fraud. And look into the screen. Wrong statement of a material fact, not known to be false. Like I am making a statement. Yeah, this is good. But I don't know that it is bad. I am telling something innocently. I don't know the truth. That will fall under misrepresentation. Next is non-disclosure of a fact where there is a legal duty to disclose without intention to deceive. I have a duty to disclose something, to say something, but I'm not disclosing it. But I don't have any intention to cheat on you. I am like innocently, being silent, or I'm making a false representation. All these things won't fall under the concept of misrepresentation. Now I'm going to discuss about the difference between fraud and misrepresentation. And the first point is that in case of misrepresentation, there is no intention to deceive or to gain any undue advantage. That means in case of misrepresentation, I have no plans to cheat on you. Just, a mere silence, or I have no plans to cheat on you, a false statement, and so on. And second, when it comes to fraud, the false statement is made deliberately with a clear intention to deceive. The person is having an intention to cheat and he's making the statement. Second point is that it must, under misrepresentation, it makes the other contracts only voidable at the option of the party whose consent has been so caused. So the effect will be voidable contract. And in case of fraud, the injured party, besides awarding the contract, may also claim the damages. The person can also claim damages. That means compensation from the party. So these, are the difference between fraud and misrepresentation. So in today's class, I have discussed about, two different factors vitiating the free consent, and that is fraud and misrepresentation. I have discussed about what is fraud, what is the definition of fraud, misrepresentation, the various essentials of fraud, case laws, landmark case laws, then misrepresentation, the concept, difference between fraud and misrepresentation, and so on. I hope it's clear for you. If you do have any queries or any doubts, do comment below. I'll be responding to your comment. Thank you for listening to me.